Let's go straight back to Mbolelo. Just before the break, you were about to say something. Share your thoughts with us, because we've got this male attitude and we need to save our young boys that they don't become those men. What can we do?
Last week I attended a dialogue in the Northwest at Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District, where one of the commissions resolved that there is a need for a campaign focusing on toy guns in South Africa, because most parents continue to buy toy guns for their children. And you ask yourself, why are we preparing kids at that stage to become killers? And again, fortunately, at last, we are in good terms with traditional leaders in some of the provinces. We are trying to address the issue of initiation schools. For instance, the Eastern Cape is preparing a curriculum for initiation schools, because what is happening currently at the initiation schools is just a mess. I've been there before, I know what I'm talking about. It's just a mess. You out of initiation school, you become a monster. You hate women like nobody's business. I've been there before, where we were encouraged to test our penises. If they are calling it Mercedes-Benz, sorry Mercedes-Benz, but they are calling our penises Mercedes-Benz, that we must test your Mercedes-Benz if it's sharp. You see, and these initiation schools are out of control. We become violent in our own homes. So such things, there is something that we're trying to do, especially now that we have organizations like Songa Gender Justice, who are focusing on boy-child through one-man campaign and SAMAC and so on. There are a lot of organizations that are focusing on boy-child, but unfortunately, Peter, there are no resources on the ground. Some of these organizations are closing shops. There is no funding to support men's responses on the ground.
All right. Minister, I think this question is going to be for you. Jabu Baloy, table 15.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, colleagues. My name is Jabu Baloy from the Commission for Gender Equality. My first question was to the minister in their capacity as a minister. Maybe you will have a bilateral with the Minister of Basic Education to say, from ANC Women's League, to say, Minister, is it not time that we begin to infuse issues of gender-based violence in life orientation? Because you brought issues of socialization so that, we catch them young, we let them know the power relation in society, so that we can deal with the patriarchal society that, we so much cry about, that does not respect women, degrade women, and demean women. Maybe it needs to be looked at so that we bring gender experts to come and capacitate educators from basic education insofar as issues of gender is related, so that we can take the country forward. And the second one is the issue of, which you also raised, Minister, the issue of Annie Boysen. The country was galvanized during Annie Boysen's death. Everyone was talking about gender-based violence. But the momentum has since died down. What is it that we can do instead of working in silos as different institutions, as Gender Commission? We issue our different statement. We do not sit down with one another. We do not sit with Women's League. We do not sit with Lisa Venten and Paul and Sonke Gender Justice and Brothers for Life. We just issued statement, flood the media, but we do not sit on the one table and discuss the way forward on issues dealing with gender, because we need a strategy as a country. But it can't be one strategy. What is it that can be done, Lisa, taking this issue, the gender agenda, and the schedule of gender-based violence forward? Thank you.
Okay, Jabu, thank you. So 2 issues, curriculum, and secondly, coordinated efforts.
No, I can't say the curriculum has incorporated issues of gender violence or violence in schools. I guess we might strengthen it further, but it is in the curriculum. Almost 18,000 of our schools are linked to police stations to also make sure that we do get support from your justice system to support schools and to support young people. So it is, but we might further need to look further into strengthening that part of the curriculum which already exists. And I think just picking up from Lisa, if I could take it, because for me it starts even much more earlier. It starts with boys coming to the world, how they are celebrated as children. The way they are welcomed at home, it's a pride to have a son at home. They are given their spaces, they are being served. And that culture of entitlement starts right there. That they grow up knowing that they don't wash dishes, they are the men of the house, even at the age of, by the time they come to school, lots of damage has happened in the family. So the families also, as a socializing institution, is very important. It happens in very innocent environments in churches, where all of us as women wearing hairs, there are a group of young men who are very few in the church, and you all have to say Baba, Baba as they speak. Even our young girls are socialized into knowing that these are the people, and all of us have to bow. So even by the time we take them to church, the church socializes them to say, these are the people. So I think you're quite correct that it really needs different facets in terms of how do we deal with patriarchy. Yes, indeed, through education, in the way we socialize our kids, in the environments we bring up our kids under, where as families we allow our kids to grow up in very violent homes, where there's lots of shouting, screaming, fighting, until they really see violence as a normal issue, because that's how they're socialized in their homes, that's how they see their fathers relating to their mothers, that's how just even violence being allowed right in their homes, in communities, it's quite normal. I think we're quite, the other point say, when Mashadi's husband was, where was society? It's normal. And we only frown when a woman claps, just feel this is real violent. But if it happens the other way around, it's shame, what went wrong. So I'm saying, and agreeing with you, I'm agreeing with you to say it is all of us from justice systems, from our homes, from all institutions that socialize us, because it's just the violence and patriarchy in society. I mean, you are asking us to say what happened after unemployment. What you would have expected, all of us pick up the campaign to sustain it. It started off in Western Cape with the committees coming out. We launched it in schools, and you'll expect the campaign to roll itself, but it doesn't roll, because every time we're quite shocked. Is it perhaps we're overwhelmed? Is it perhaps we don't have a proper strategy to sustain campaigns? And that's what we need to look at, to say, how do we sustain these campaigns to make sure that it does take all the facets that it needs to take? But it's not only about Women's League, it's not only about women, it's all of us, as I say, from birth, the way boys are received even in the world. It's a boy celebrated, and the culture of entitlement and power just starts there.
Okay. Machad, if I can come back to you, and I'm just wondering, and the question does come up. You're in an abusive relationship, and the question is, why do you stay? What needs to happen to help you? What could have happened? What kind of intervention could have happened for things to have been different? Could the family have helped you? And also post the event, what kind of support does a survivor need to get through this kind of scenario?
Yes, I believe that the cycle needs to be broken from a very tender age, because some men are brought up in families where abuse happens, and when they marry, they strongly believe that is what leadership is all about. And they define it wrongly, because leadership is all about being responsible, loving your family, respecting your wife, and taking good care of your children. And I believe that programs need to be rolled out in our society where children are sensitized about abuse and what all abuse is all about. Because our children believe that abuse is only when somebody hits you or stabs you with a knife or shoot you. And they don't understand that abuse can be from verbal, if somebody is talking to you the way you don't like it, touching you the way you don't feel comfortable. So I believe that it needs to start at a very tender age, at schools, at foundation level, in our preschools. And years post my ordeal, if it was not the steps that I took myself, accepting that now I'm different, this is who I am, and I need to stand up and move on, and also talk about it, break the silence, and make people aware that abuse is wrong. It should not happen. It should not be condoned. Thank you.
And Nhlanhla, you know, we saw this famous woman, Nigella Lawson, in the UK, in the papers, and suddenly it was a shocking story. And I just thought, for this guy to be throttling her in public, it must have been going on for some time. And people must have been seeing this happening. And what is it that we need to do to make sure, or give them the strength to get out of that situation? Because I know it's difficult. It is hard for them. What is it that we need to do as people that are around them to help them to get out before it's too late? And what sort of support do we need to give them post that night?
Firstly, it takes an abused woman 10 to 15 years to leave the abusive relationship, mainly because families do not support, and even other support systems that women go to, like the church and the elders of the family. I think women start there. By the time they come to power, they've sort of exhausted. They've called the mother-in-law and the father-in-law and the family to say, let's talk about this, this is happening to me. And they speak about it, but you find that sometimes the family is not supportive. And the women will try all those avenues before they come to power, where power will say, besides the family, besides the church, you now have these options. You can take legal steps in terms of, opening a case or getting a protection order or going into a shelter for abused women where you have support of a social worker who will listen to you and believe you. Because with other families, when you say, I'm being abused, then they start asking, what are you doing to provoke your husband to be that way? So once people start asking you those questions, then you withdraw. You no longer deal with the issue because people are asking you why. And when they should be bringing you together and understanding. And when they've spoken to him and it doesn't help, then they should say, let's explore other options. And as a family, as a community, we will support you. But because we don't do that, women tend to stay in those abusive relationships, and it's 10 and 15 years, and they leave. And when they leave at that time, because the abuser has been doing this for so long, then he knows that I can get away with it. That's when he shoots, that's when he steps, that's when he throttles. And because of that, with the Nigella story, it says it's happening only to poor, uneducated women. That is not true. It happens to middle-class women, and because of our status and the environment we work in and we live in, we sometimes don't speak about these things because my colleagues are going to be saying, if I'm the director of power and I'm being abused, people are going to be asking, she's such an empowered woman. She can speak in public, but she's abused. That is not the question that people should be asking. The question should be, Nhlanhla, how can we help you? How can we support you? Then I will begin to speak up, and then I will explore the options that are available to me. But sometimes women withdraw because we judge them. The first thing we ask is about asking them, what did they do? So the support of the family is important, the support of friends is important, the support of the church, the support of other women in the community is important. So women tend to stay long because the support system is very weak. We are talking about programs. There isn't enough investment in terms of parenting programs. We need to find out why. There's a lot of single mothers in the country. What programs are available to support those single mothers? We have a lot of young women and girls who are having babies, who are relying on the grants. What programs are available out there to ensure that they exit the system? So we need to be looking at that. We are saying we need to work with men and boys. Is there money that is invested by government, by the private sector, to ensure that that work is being done? We need to develop programs where, yes, we have responses that are assisting survivors of violence. We also need responses for young girls, and all those responses should run parallel. There shouldn't be a response that is done by Sonke there and power there and government there. We need a coordinated effort so that at the end of the day, we can see the impact of all the role players in the sector.
All right. Table number 17, we've got another survivor who wants to share her story with us. I can't read your first name here, Ms. Nyati. If you could tell us your first name as well. And just share your story with us.
Ki duduzile Nyathi,
Okay.
ki duzi ka gara abuse. For me o arego wadula motho, kara maybe for 15 years. Ke mongwe wa bona. Taba ena e etsa gore ke dule. Bothata gore ne ke sa bereke. And o sena motho a ka tlhokomelang bana. So, kadula. Mara, la fitla letsatsi. Le elore, kile ka shapa ka collapse. Ka bona gore enough is enough. Ke tlamile o tloga ke eme. Yes, a ke bereke, mara God will provide. So, ka ema. Ke gopola ke shapile, ne ke sa shebagale gore ke motho o mo jwang. Kaya mula Hillbrook spetlele banjia bangisa ikale temba ke mo e le gore ya ne go le bothata so ka fihla ka ya mogelega ntho ile ya nthusa ikale temba ke gore ke ile ka kraya Kurkire ga hilega spiritually counseling. Ntoile ya nthusa. Ka kra me o mongwe mola ba re ke mamnora. Ampalela Bible. So every day in Tapama, a re fetsa go ja 6 o'clock. Ne ke le motho ke yo ke o bala Bible. So ka bona gore nnete a se bofelo ba lefase. Ene gore modimo a go ntšhe mo bothateng o etsa bothata bo bongwe gore a go ntšhe mole a go beye pleke e right so ka kgotlhelela wa ba mole ba nthusa ikale temba ke gopola ba tlisa course e nngwe ya o etsa manala di eyelash a wa ka tsena ka ithuta dilo tseo ngwaga gona nna ke tlogile mo abusing ka 2011 ka June until today. You know what? I'm not going back to abuse. Ki nyetswe ka white wedding, ka ring eturang. Kari, you know what? I'm not going back there. So enough is enough. I have to look forward. And kinsiki apa manzu ao kare modimo nthuse ke kgatele pele. So ke le ka ra lenyalo monna na sa dumele ke bereka and le gore ke tšweletse dithuto tsa ka pele na sa dumele ke gopola tsa se le lengwe mme wa ka bona gore happy ke tabogetse taba tsa manyalo and then sekolong a ke a fetsa botse so mme wa ka etsa tsela ya gore ke khutlele sekolong monna ga nang fa tšhelete then go etsagala ba mfa ka lo etsa food service management then ka tswelela ke a bona gore ka kra mosebetsi then go ba le bothata thata le sisa mosebetsi monna ka dula ka re ke ntate wa bana ka re o tla kgona batho ba modimo ka shapiwa ka tswela pele monna tsamaya 3 days a sa botsa tswile kae mara ka re bana ke ba ba ifo modimo ke tlamela ke ba dulelele as long as I push ka o isa bana sekolong ke tla dula mara taba ile ya mpusha gore ke tsamaye ke ya go shapiwa ka bona gore ga ke sa tlo gore mo ke tlo feletsa ke shwile and bana ba ka ba tlo sala ba tshwenyega ka bona gore e re ke tšee step se sengwe sa go etsa something so ke le ka gara Ikhale Themba ka etsa yona course ya manala le di-eyelash ka fetsa ka kopana le o mongwe a o so mongwe mo shelter le ena a tla le ka taba ya ho etsa di-beats ka etsa le nna ka tseba nna ha ke ya Ikhale Themba ne ke tseba go etsa di-bracelet di-chain mangina ke kgona ho etsa jwalo ka kopana le ausola yena na etsa tsa tradition tsa Sezulu tse so teacher ka tshwara ka fela ka etsa ke rekisa and then cause ya manala inthusitse ke sa bereki ne ba re dumelela mola Ikhale Themba gore o ka tswa wa itirela if maybe somebody a batla ho etsa manala a o fonela ke phila ka gona mkgono ka feletsa ke kraya salone ona mo Joburg mo a so mongwe a nrentisa mo le a mpatedisa bo 400 then
All right.
ka etsa manala ka ona ngwagono ka etsa ka kgona gore ke rekele bana diaparo tsa Christmas and ke kgone go ya le bona hae hape.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your story and I guess the gist of it. All right, for those that didn't quite catch what she was saying, essentially 4 children stuck in this marriage and was abused by this man who didn't let her work, didn't let her study, and he kept on abusing her. And she stayed because she was scared that these kids would, as long as he looked after the children, essentially, she put up with it. But at some point, it got to a point where she decided, look, enough is enough. This guy's going to hit me to a point that I will die, and actually that I'll orphan these children. And the mother tried to help, but she was scared to be interfering in the marriage. And so I guess it's one of these stories that continue about the patriarchy and where a woman feels disempowered and where she feels that he's the father of my children, therefore he must be right, and defer the power to him. And she got strength and solace from an organization called Kaya Litemba, where she studied and got some coursework and started to empower herself, and spiritual guidance as well helped her a great deal. So another sad story, and again, patriarchy seems to be the theme that keeps coming through throughout. And I'm just wondering, is this a cultural inheritance that continues to be perpetuated? I hear these stories of women going down Bree Street wearing short skirts, and that apparently provokes men into this kind of behavior. And I'm trying to understand that, even. Minister?
No, I think it's patriarchy and its institutions that keeps on fueling it in different ways. What also, one of our panelists was saying, just seemingly innocent institutions like your circumcision schools. Here you have kids dying, and the men running the center say women cannot enter. And for instance, when there was this incident where there was, just bring it closer, a SATU strike, and there was underwear shown. We tried to investigate to say, how do you have teachers who are supposed to be socializing our kids, because an underwear is an intimate piece of cloth which suggests lots of things around sex and other things. And we were told it comes from Skukuni area where there is socialization coming from initiation around really what it means to be a man. I'm told sometimes they sit there just taught to insult women, that it's a pride for them if there's a woman going past, you insult them and undress them as much as possible. It just is normal. And so for them to march with an underwear, it's just part of how they're socialized in a very innocent, seemingly environment. And it's those small things that I think in addressing South African patriarchy is to even look at what are the institutions that keep on fueling it. Such as a home, it's all sorts of other things where we socialize our kids in a very careless manner that begins to instill in them the wrong attitudes and minds that we find ourselves having to deal with, not sometimes, as Lisa said, understanding where they originate from. And I think it's to unpack all these social institutions that we use to socialize our kids that end up us having now, instead of teaching them to read and write at schools, we also have to teach them, to unteach them that which they bring from home and what they also get from society.
Lisa, is there a relationship between what we're watching on television that's coming through the media? I see some of these videos, these gangster rappers and the thongs and things. Is there a relationship between that and the attitudes that men have over women?
I don't think we can say that watching a video is going to cause you to go out and rape. It's not that simple. But I think the language that we use, how we represent, what are the dominant images of women and men in the media, they certainly play a part in shaping how we think. And I mean, so I think those are opportunities to intervene. So I think the debate that we had a couple of weeks ago about those two former FHM journalists making jokes about how funny it is to rape, that is what contributes to rape culture. Clearly it doesn't cause rape, but it creates the climate where we think, rape's funny. It's not such a serious thing. It's a good way to punish people. So I think when we have those kinds of conversations, that is a way to prevent rape. But I'd like to talk about three other very quick things we could do which could prevent violence against women. We have evidence and we can see they work. The one is gun control. We have seen, I think, between 1999 and 2009, we have seen a decline in the number of women murdered. And the biggest decline in that decade has been in the number of women being killed by guns. And I think what is important is that in 2000, we introduced the firearms control legislation. So it tells us that restricting gun ownership saves women's lives. So I think we should continue to implement that legislation and make sure that it works. The other thing we can do is look at how available alcohol is. Restricting the availability of alcohol doesn't prevent all violence because alcohol by itself doesn't cause violence. But again, reducing the availability of alcohol is another way in which we reduce violence. So that would be another very quick thing we could do through policy and legislation. The third thing we could do to start preventing rape tomorrow is to challenge the police to introduce a policy around serial rape. I recently went to a presentation where a member of the police spoke, and he said they had been doing DNA analysis of semen that had come in from rape cases. And there are 477 serial rapists operating in South Africa at the moment. That is terrifying. That is men who will not stop until they are caught. But because there is no policy guiding how those rapes are investigated, it means you could have anything up to 4 or 5 different investigating officers investigating one case and not working together. Yesterday we had the birthday rapist convicted of 30 rapes. So if we challenge the police tomorrow to put together such a policy and more, to put together a task team to start immediately investigating those rapes, we could start bringing down and preventing rapes tomorrow. So I mean, those are 3 quick things we could do straight away that don't require research or anything else.
All right. I think related to that, table number 20, Dr. Matole, is it Taure? Sorry?
Good morning. I'm Dr. Matutu Taure.
Ah, okay.
Yes. I'm coming from the Department of Science and Technology. In relation to what Lisa has just said about serial rapists, my question is that given the technology that we have now, what is it being done? What measures are being taken to use forensic data or, to make more forensic labs or whatever? But what is being done to make sure that we use this technology to our advantage? If we have a good forensic data, for example, and we were using it, like we had access to it, then we wouldn't have this serial rapist or this this repeated crimes that have been done over and over again. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know who can respond to that question.
Possibly the police should.
Yeah.
But because one would really wish somebody we hear from was National Office could talk about their DNA, also the draft DNA legislation in Parliament, as to where that is right now.
Can somebody, yeah?
Yes, thank you, Peter. My name is Memme Makane from the Department of Community Safety in Gauteng. And part of our responsibilities is to have oversight over the work that police is doing. And perhaps just to say that within the Gauteng province, there is already a unit that is going to start working on this whole issue of serial rapes, and the process is in the pipeline, and I think within the next 6 months we'll be having that unit and operating and operationally functional. Again, we are also introducing the model or the concept of forensic social work, where we are training social workers to be able to write up reports that would ensure that we win those cases, because out of 100% cases that are reported, you only have a successful conviction rate of only about 13%. And we lose most of our cases in the process. And there's a lot of work that needs to be gathered. And we are training about 30 social workers that would be able to get all the information that would ensure that the victims give out information that would ensure that we win the cases that we are doing. So just to also say that, yeah, one thing that we are not saying enough is that issues of gender-based violence go hand in hand with substance abuse. Lisa spoke around alcohol. We now have the new drugs on the block, your nyahupe. Our young boys smoke nyahupe, go out and rape. So it's a whole compound of issues that we need to deal with. And I think I agree with the panelists that charity should begin at home. Within our families, as mothers, if we don't begin to search those bags of our boys, once you see a cigarette, know that something big is coming. Because we have a number of cases from the youth deaths that are reported. They engage in these crimes because they were under an influence of certain drugs. I know that there are men from the church, amagosa, are abusayo, not using any drugs, but I think drug abuse also perpetuates this.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, so I'm going to have to leave it there. But thank you very much indeed for giving us that response. And I think, is that where we wrap? And that's... All right, okay, perhaps maybe just in closing, just a final 10 seconds each, if it's possible. Starting with you, Minister, just literally a sentence.
Yeah, I really think, especially this breakfast, helps to remind us that it really needs a holistic, integrated process, because it's not only one-sided. And I think Women's Month should help us to, again, rethink around the strategies to say, what is it that is working, what is that is failing, and come out of the Women's Month with a commitment to really integrate and strengthen the work that we are doing, because all of us are concerned in different ways, from different angles, and we just need this seamless, integrated approach that can be able to address some of the challenges that are created by violence against women.
Yes, I think to echo what Ms. Motshekga has said, is that firstly, there's no magic bullet, there's no one solution. We need lots of different kinds of solutions, and we need short and long term. So again, to reiterate, in the short term, gun control, alcohol, a serial rapist policy, and then the behavior change in the long term.
We need a coordinated effort to fight violence against women and girls. And South Africa has been declared a middle-income country, which means a lot of NGOs are struggling. So we need to galvanize resources.
All right, I'm really running out of time. Bulelo?
Let's go to Johannesburg Stadium on the 24th and meet the Deputy President there. To all women of South Africa, on behalf of men's organizations, we apologize for the suffering you've gone through in our name.
Matsadi?
We should all break the silence, talk about it, and I'm available if anyone needs to talk about it.
All right. To our panelists, ladies and gentlemen, please give them a big hand. And to you at home, thank you very much indeed for joining us here for this very important conversation. Please, let's not just leave it at this. Take a pledge, do something, make a difference, and don't ignore what's happening around you. Thank you very much for joining us from here in Sandton. Let's go back to Johannesburg.